This is ridiculous! What are you doing? What are you doing?
It's shocking police body cam video as a woman is taken into custody, screaming she's 8 months pregnant. She's pushed to the ground on her stomach and cuffed, then dragged to a police car in tears.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Why was she arrested? The answer may surprise you.
Now, former Duval County Jail corrections officer is finding herself on the other side of the law tonight. She was arrested. 21-year-old Catherine Thompson is charged with battery and official misconduct. Her mugshot has not been released. Investigators say she hit a restrained inmate in the face last Friday until that inmate fell to the floor. They say she then continued to hit the woman.
She says tensions escalated even further when she asked Thompson why she was, quote, treating me like an animal or slave.
She pretty much went off. She started calling me Kunta Kinte.
Kunta Kinte is a slave character from the TV show Roots.
That was way over the top. That let me know right there where her mind was at.
Then she says Thompson ordered her in a room with no camera where she placed tight shackles on her legs and hands before attacking her.
She punched me dead in my forehead, right in the middle. Boom, right here. I could not believe it. She used both hands, got this head, bam me, my head, this part of my head into the concrete wall. She sprayed me this close range with pepper spray, each eye.
Another officer intervened and this complaint against Thompson was filed. The complaint triggered an investigation that led to Thompson being fired and arrested.
The idea that racism and prejudice have been wiped clean from Jasper is an absolute illusion.
Attorney Cade Burnson points to this surveillance video from inside Jasper's police department as an example. It was May 5th. He says his client, Shay Diggles, had been taken into custody for falling behind on payments for a traffic violation. Words were exchanged, and it only gets worse from there.
He comes over and basically assaults her, pushing up her against a wall, and then his partner comes out of nowhere and basically grabs her her hair and slams her face on the counter, and then proceeds to take her by the hair and body slam her.
I'm going to shoot you. Let it go, I'm going to shoot you.
No, please, don't shoot him.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back, Kate. Stop it now. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
What did I do? What did I do?
This video was originally posted online on June 16th, several days after an internal investigation was pursued, clearing the officer of any wrongdoing. Now that this video has been shared through social media countless times over the last few weeks, it's led the department to reopen the investigation.
He's not subduing her, he's beating her. There's a difference, right? He's not subduing her to handcuff her or to arrest her. He's beating her before the arrest, because you can see that he repeatedly beats her and beats her. And what would be characterized as resistance is only a human reaction of somebody trying to defend themselves from somebody who's mercilessly beating them.
Cops say she refused to give them her name and resisted arrest.
I was in pain. I was scared.
29-year-old Charlena Michelle Cooks is speaking exclusively to Inside Edition about the incident.
I thought I was gonna die.
It started after this woman called cops, claiming Cooks punched her car window during a dispute at an elementary school parking lot in Barstow, California.
She scared the hell out of me, and I'm like, I'm calling the police. She's call the police. She's screaming at me.
When the officer doesn't see any damage to the woman's car, he makes this remark.
I don't see a crime that has been committed.
He then approached Cooks for her side of the story. She had just dropped off her daughter, a second grader at the school.
Okay. What is your name, ma'am?
I'm not giving you my name.
Yeah, I actually do have the right to ask you for your name.
Why not just give him your name?
Because it's my privacy.
Cooks did give him her middle name, Michelle, then told him she wanted to call her boyfriend.
Just give me your name, please. Give me your name, please.
I just told you my name is Michelle.
No.
Within seconds, he and another officer moved in to arrest Cooks, ignoring her cries that she's 8 months pregnant. So, was she really required to give her name to police? Legal analyst Royal Oakes.
It's a huge problem for the police that they grabbed this woman when she refused to identify herself. She had a right to clam up. Then she tells them, I'm pregnant, and they still kind of manhandle her. This tape is going to be devastating in court.
Cook's lawyer, Carrie Harper, believes there's a racial component to the incident.
The question, you can't help but to ask, in this climate that we're in, is if Miss Cooks were blonde hair and a Caucasian female and 8 months pregnant, would she have been thrown to the ground?
But police say in a statement this incident was in no way racially motivated, adding, the Barstow Police Department continues to be proactive in training its officers to assess and handle interactions with emotionally charged individuals while conducting an investigation for the protection of everyone involved. A judge dismissed all charges against Cooks, and she gave birth to a healthy baby girl in March. But as she remembers the moment she refused to give her name to police, she still breaks down.
I feel like they broke me, and for no reason. I'm just broken now.
That's ridiculous! What are you doing?
So corrections officer faces charges for allegedly beating up a pregnant woman.
These are some pictures of the injuries the victim says she suffered after the officer punched her more than 20 times following an argument. Action News Jack's Kevin Clark is live downtown at headquarters. And Kevin, you were actually the first one to tell Welch about Thompson's arrest.
It was Friday here at the Duval County Jail when Welch was brought here, and she said her problems began almost immediately. Correnda Welch says this bruise under her left eye is one result of being beaten up by JSO Corrections Officer Catherine Thompson.
How many times did she hit you?
She hit me at least 20 times.
JSO announced Thompson's arrest Thursday afternoon. She'd been with the agency 14 months and was still in her probationary period. Welch says she was arrested last Friday for driving with a suspended license. She says she and Thompson exchanged words before Thompson placed her in a 4-point restraint and then started punching her.
So I'm chained. I'm punched, so I'm back on a bench. From the bench, she got both hands, my head. She slammed it, this side of my head, slammed it into the wall.
And them attached with a chain. While being in 4-point restraints, the arrestee said something to the corrections officer that infuriated her, and the corrections officer then struck the arrestee in the face, knocking her to the ground. She then proceeded to follow her to the ground and struck her multiple more times. So in response to that, the corrections officer was arrested today, a short time ago, and charged with official misconduct, which stems from she wrote a report after the fact and was what we believe not honest in her interpretation of the original incident, and also charged with battery. Official misconduct is a 3rd-degree felony. The battery is a 1st-degree misdemeanor. This individual, when I said that she had been only an employee for 14 months, she's on probation until she reaches 18 months. So she has been terminated. As I've described several times in the past, if you are on probation, you do not have some of the protections that the other employees do that are full-time and not on probation. So therefore, due to this arrest, she is fired without the ability of the protection, so we can just terminate her without any other proceedings administratively. So,
Welch is 5 weeks pregnant and says she explained that to Thompson and the other corrections officers.
And they even had me to sign something when I was back there saying that I acknowledge as when I'm pregnant, they're not supposed to chain me with my hands behind my back or at my ankles. And they had already broken all of those rules by the time I signed that paper.
Action News Jack's crime and safety expert and longtime JSO officer Ken Jefferson tells me agencies normally have rules for processing pregnant inmates.
Everybody coming to jail is not a hardened criminal. A person comes in that says that they're pregnant, you should use due care in protecting that fetus and protecting that mother.
Then they then handcuff her.
The video shows the officers trying to drag Diggles by her feet to a holding cell, one of them losing his balance and falling when her shoe comes off.
What kind of an impact did it have on you emotionally?
I haven't been able to sleep, anxiety a lot. Just scared.
Diggles says the officers pulled her hair so hard she still has a bald spot nearly a month after the fact. She also says her braces and teeth were damaged.
To see that video in the police station in my little town, you know, sickening.
In a special session, the Jasper City Council voted unanimously to terminate both officers. It's also asking the district attorney's office to consider criminal charges. The action comes just days before the 15th anniversary of James Byrd Jr.'s death after being dragged behind a pickup truck at Jasper County.
What does it say that this kind of behavior is still going on?
It had nothing changed. That it's still the same.
It's not right. It's not, we want justice.
Now to Georgia, where an officer was caught on video beating a homeless woman with a baton inside of a gas station. The incident took place in Decatur, Georgia on June 4th. In the video, you can see Officer P.J. Lershid hitting the woman several times with a metal baton while she lay on the ground. At one point, the officer places his knee in her back and the metal baton on her neck. The woman then places one of her hands on the baton, and Officer Lershid then shouts, quote, "Let it go or I will shoot you." Take a look.
Put your hands behind your back, man. I'm going to shoot you. Let it go, I'm going to shoot you.
No, please, don't shoot him.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back, Katie. Stop it now. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
What did I do? What did I do?
This video was originally posted online on June 16th, several days after an internal investigation was pursued, clearing the officer of any wrongdoing. Now that this video has been shared through social media countless times over the last few weeks, it's led the department to reopen the investigation. Earlier, I was joined by Reverend Graylin Scott Hagler, Senior Minister of Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ, and I asked him, should police departments do away with internal investigations?
The reality is that that's a standard that something has to be so egregious in order for them not to be justified. So it's biased towards police officers. And as you can see right here in this case in Decatur, Georgia, he's not subduing her, he's beating her. There's a difference, right? He's not subduing her to handcuff her or to arrest her. He's beating her before the arrest, because you can see that he repeatedly beats her and beats her. And what would be characterized as resistance is only human reaction of somebody trying to defend themselves from somebody who's mercilessly beating them. And that's what's going on in this videotape, is that he's not subduing, he's beating the person.
Right, and you can also hear in the video people are like, don't resist, just lay there. But naturally, if you're getting hit by a baton, you're not just going to lay still. And like you've said, these internal investigations are biased, so usually they are ineffective. Now,
and let me point out this. That's why you have police officers operating with impunity, because they know that if they end up in the process in terms of investigation, it's still slanted towards them, it's biased towards them, and so they can go out and act with impunity. They can treat the community any old way, because they know that there's really going to be no consequences that they will have to pay unless something is so egregious, and yet it has to be discovered. There has to be verifiable evidence. So it's all slanted in their direction.
Now the department is saying that they're reopening the investigation. What do you think is going to happen, the outcome of this?
Well, I think that what should happen, obviously, is that the officer needs to be disciplined and probably needs to be fired for that kind of force that is being exercised, because it is not judicious in terms of what he's doing. It endangers other police officers. Why? Because if that's my attitude, the way you're going to approach me is the way you're going to approach her, then I'm going to be obviously on guard, and I'm going to react in a particular way just at the appearance of police officers, because I know that they're looking at me as non-human. They're looking at me as somebody that they can beat upon and prey upon. And that's the kind of perception that is going on in the community, is that people are saying that there is not a regard in which police officers see other people as human beings.
Mm-hmm. And right now the officer is on administrative leave. We don't know whether it's paid or not.
Usually paid.
That's usually the case, but we're not sure.
It's a vacation.
So my next question to you, when it comes to officers, usually in these cases, video hasn't surfaced, and so it's their word against the victim's word. But shouldn't, in your opinion, these officers all be equipped with video cameras?
Well, we've even seen, though, however, when there's video cameras that's equipped, that officers are equipped with, they can still do what they do, and they still walk, because everything is still slanted towards the officers. You got some where video cameras are cut off at the crucial moment. I mean, that's been happened in the past. Or you have things that are actually recorded by the video cam, but it's just in terms of the eyes of the process, of the law enforcement process, the officer acted in a justifiable way, because the argument is, oh, they got a dangerous job and their lives are at risk and they have to make split-second decisions and all of that type of stuff. Well, the issue is that most of them are not trained properly. Most of them are taught to look at a community through a particular lens, of stereotypical lens in terms of the criminality or the animalistic nature of people of color, and that's the way they respond. And so the training is not adequate. Even the psychological screening that happens very often with law enforcement is not adequate. And so you have really ill-equipped officers that are out there in the community, so-called serving, but really sort of riding and roughshoding in many cases over the community.
And unfortunately, it seems like we are seeing this obviously time and time again, like you said, no matter whether there's video that's surfaced or not, like in the case of Philando Castile and how the officer was acquitted of any wrongdoing, even though video surfaced showing what happened in that situation. So do you believe that this is just going to continue, that there's absolutely no solution to this issue here in the country?
Well, one of the things is that we really need to have true civilian review boards. I'm not talking about civilian review boards that's controlled by the police or controlled by the government, but real civilian review boards that in a sense is acting as consumers, looking at how these officers are patrolling the community and whether it is justifiable. I mean, because every place we've had generally civilian review boards has been taken over by law enforcement, or it's been taken over by government, or they've made sure that they have not had the legal kinds of teeth in order to prosecute police officers. So there's still, it's been a ruse when they set up civilian review boards, because they really lack the power in order to be able to implement judgment. So we really need true civilian review boards that have the legal, that are authorized legally in order to prosecute and police officers that are particularly caught doing wrong in neighborhoods and in communities.
All right, I want to get back to the video. We can see the officer yelling at the woman and countlessly beating her with this metal baton. We hear him saying, "Let go of this baton or I will shoot you." Now,
amazing comment.
Now, coming from this officer, he's threatening this woman's life after brutally abusing her with this metal baton. In your opinion, did he go too far?
Well, he went too far, first of all, in his use of that baton. I mean, obviously, it did not take all of that in order to subdue somebody that you were going to make a prisoner. And then to keep beating somebody and not expect that person, me or you for that matter, not to respond and not to try to get control over the instrument that's beating us and causing us great pain is a kind of ridiculous notion, right? So when he moves to the point of saying you either let go of the baton or I'll shoot you for what, right? The fact is you have somebody that is being beaten mercilessly and somebody who's trying to defend themselves.
Now, I want to go to the charges. The woman was charged. She was a homeless woman, and when the officers received the call, it was for a woman who was begging for money at the gas station. And we see this time and time again where people are in need of money and don't have jobs for numerous reasons. Now, she was charged with obstructing or hindering law enforcement officers and was given a criminal trespass warning. Now, these charges that she faces, were they at all necessary?
Well, even if you listen to the charges, why would any of those charges warrant a beating? Right? I mean, that's the reality, right? You're panhandling. You're on somebody's property, probably out there in the parking lot where the people are fueling at. Why would any of that really warrant a beating in the first place, or even an arrest in the first place? I mean, at the most, that would be a ticket item. I mean, so so the issue is what happens is that people are not allowed to do the kind of panhandling in certain communities that they do in certain communities, right? There's a class difference. There's a difference in terms of what people expect and what people tolerate, and therefore what police will patrol and what police will try to remove from neighborhoods and communities, depending on class again.
Every case of police brutality against a Negro follows the same pattern. They attack you, bust you all upside your mouth, and then take you to court and charge you with assault. What kind of democracy is that? What kind of freedom is that? What kind of social or political system is it when a black man has no voice in court, has nothing on his side other than what the white man chooses to give him? My brothers and sisters, we have to put a stop to this. And it will never be stopped until we stop it ourselves. They attack the victim. And then the criminal who attacked the victim accuses the victim of attacking him. Yes, sir. This is American justice. Yes, sir. That's right. This is American democracy. Yes, and those of you who are familiar with it know that in America, democracy is hypocrisy. Right. Now, if I'm wrong, put me in jail. Right. But if you can't prove that a democracy is not hypocrisy, then don't put your hands on me. Come here.
The video taken from the back of a transport vehicle shows the handcuffed teenager stepping out to face two officers, Rory Bruce on the left.
Stand out here with us.
Words exchanged, and then this.
One forearm forearm blow as he's trained to do.
I met with Jeff Rorta with the St. Louis Police Officers Association. Without the video playing in front of him, I asked him what it shows. Rorta says he sees Bruce crouched down, the suspect moving forward, the officer only defending himself.
I told you I wanted to search you, and you came out of the thing and started lunging at it.
But that's not what the department believed. They fired Bruce and turned the case over to prosecutors to charge. Because the case is now closed, prosecutors told me they couldn't comment on camera. But in an emailed statement, Circuit Attorney Jennifer Joy said the office was disappointed that the judge didn't see this video, adding they think it clearly shows Bruce beating a handcuffed teen. Judge Teresa Counts-Burke didn't return my calls for comment. Rorta says the judge did right. He says police videos like these should be used to protect police, not go after them.